The attack on the Redth soils. Meads stopped falling from the sky as Cortho, Calypso and the Ozalbenegs waited in their covers. They were all prepared to ambush the Redths in the woods, and they know that any moment from now the Redths would be on their sight. Their scouts told them that the Redths were on their way, and as time passed there was none appearing on the woods, not even a sign that the woods near the banks of the lake were disturbed with enemy march. What's happening? Why aren't the Redths coming? Cortho asked. Wait, just wait. They will come, Calypso remarked. However, more than an hour had passed since they were fired at and not one Redth was emerging from the woods. Calypso motioned to some Ozalbenegs to look out, and the Ozalbenegs quickly moved and went out of the woods. They waited. Moments later, the scouts returned and were motioning to Calypso to follow them. This made Calypso and the others wondered as they followed the scouts until the river was on their view. The banks of the river were empty with Redths, and only their tents were left behind as if the Redths were in haste leaving their land. Calypso gazed at the river from afar and saw the Redth boats heading back to the ships while the boats that were firing at them began to sail east. The Ozalbenegs were surprised at the sudden behavior of the Redths as each of them appeared from the woods to the banks of the river. They all watched from afar the small boats filled with Redth soldiers winched up to their large ships. They could hear horns as each large boat followed the ships that were heading east. They looked to their east but saw nothing peculiar but the sight of the high cliffs blocking their views of the great river in their east. The Ozalbenegs started to rejoice at the sight of the invaders leaving their lands. Calypso and Cortho, though shared their feelings, were however tensed and unsure. Why are they leaving? Cortho remarked. I don't know, but surely there is something more important to make the Redths forget about us for the moment. Cortho remembered the night when the ships of the Jujingjings were attacked in the waters. Maybe they are being invaded. Calypso looked at him as he spoke again what they saw. This time, Calypso was all ears on him. When we destroyed the ships that were sailing towards here and the others sailed back, we saw that some of them were destroyed on their rivers by something we couldn't see. They were under attack, judging from the way they changed directions as if avoiding something. Maybe their enemies in the waters have set foot into their soils. What enemy? The Bikes, Calypso asked. I don't know. Whoever they are, we must be thankful that they caused those Redths to withdraw from us. Go back to the cliffs, see what you can find. We cannot be assured that they totally forget about us. Maybe they will be back. From the deck of the ship using his telescope, Skeb was seeing already the foreign ships that just appeared from their waters in the north. The message reached him when their southern tip was destroyed by unknown kinds and there was a large fleet of ships moving towards the Redth land. Those ships were not the Jujingjings or the ships from the north of Redths. He was familiar with the large force ahead of them, judging from their colorful sails that, though small from afar, were radiating in the clear day. He was unsure whether they were the soldiers from Igathansha that were sent to destroy Ravilho's stronghold. He knew those ships had a purpose, and as soldiers of the Redth land, they were all bound to defend it against enemy invaders, even if those ships were just out to destroy Ravilho. They aborted their plan against the Ozalbenegs and headed straight to meet the forces that were present in their waters. Skeb was perplexed, however, that nothing resisted the large force of foreign ships or meet with them in the rivers that they usually do each time there were unknown boats that were sailing in their waters. He could see that the south was filled with smoke as they passed the middle land of Ozalbenegs, and slowly his view of the river in the north was becoming clear. He was stunned, for when his ship changed direction he saw the burned and almost flattened village from afar. Ravilho's ships were seen destroyed near the shores and several other ships were still burning. He knew that from where the smoke was rising, Ravilho's place had been totally destroyed and it was impossible that any of the villagers survived. He wondered whether the army of Igathansha started to invade their land as there was still smoke rising far out after the mountains where the northern Redths live. The sight of other ships of Igathansha just sailing towards their port made him think otherwise, for it looked like the ships just arrived there after the entire village in the south has been attacked. Were they attacked from the land by the Sumiks, and those ships around their waters were just protecting their soldiers on foot? But that was impossible. It would take days for them to reach the south using the mountains, and by then, he would know, for there were scouts scattered in their mountains that could alert the southern Redths of any visitor, especially those sent by King Neen. Those scouts were not meant to engage the enemies in the mountain but to warn them on the coming of intruders or unwanted visitors from the north, he thought. The Sumiks saw the Redth boats heading in their direction. They knew that those ships were thinking that they are invading the Redth land. Bitburg, Yugada's second in command, was leading them. They were the force sent by Yugada to aid the southern Redths against the advancing army of Malservius, find their lost sailors that sailed before them, and cross the Ozalbeneg land to join them in saving the Mals. They were however late, seeing the port from afar burned and destroyed. He gave the order to his fleet to not fire at the Redths unless they were fired upon first. On the other end, Skeb motioned for his sailors to get ready to engage the enemy in the river. Horns were sounded and the boats behind them understood. They started to maneuver and prepare their attack formation. The Sumik soldiers were also ready, but not one was making any move. Wave our flag. Let them see that we are not enemies, Bitburg commanded. Suddenly, Skeb saw that on several decks of the ship Sumiks were waving flags telling the Redths that they do not want any fight. This perplexed Skeb once more until a Redth got his attention. He looked at where the Redth was pointing at. He saw that their shores were slowly being filled up by dark bodies emerging out from their woods and started to go to the waters, swimming towards them. The Sumiks saw this too, and both the Redths and the Sumiks were stunned at the thousands of Malservius getting into the water as if they were rocks floating towards them. The two fleets, Redths and Sumiks, readied their arms at the sight of unknown and armed bodies swimming from the waters towards their boats. Their sights were on the shores and by the river before them. They did not notice the blue birds that were flying in the sky coming from their backs.